Hey, what's going on there, folks? Welcome back here. It is the Earthmaster on this end of the microphone. How's everyone doing on this Monday evening? Technically Tuesday, early Tuesday morning there across certain areas. Latest activity shows a 3.0 here on this early morning down in the South America region. So let's see what's going on here across Southern California. I know it's been kind of a hot spot of earthquake activity. I am leaving up the earthquake watch here overnight because of still elevated earthquake activity out here across the El Centro area. And not only for this specific reason, but also over the past week or so, we've seen areas of increasing earthquake activity across the state of California. If we look at the 7-day map here, last 7 days, 2.5 and above, we can see certain areas that have been hit up and down the plate boundary, even leading up to the southern edge here of the San Andreas Fault, which, you really don't want to mess around out here in terms of, these earthquake swarms, because all it takes one day maybe will be an earthquake swarm potentially to trigger this, the big one, right? 8.1. We've been chatting about that a lot. I was hearing that when I was a kid, and that was a while ago. I'm not going to give out my age here, but, it's been long overdue, and time has passed, and it's still long overdue. So it's just a matter of time before we see that bigger one out here. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the last 24 hours of earthquake activity out here. We're well over 200 earthquakes now in the El Centro area. This is kind of about the same region here that we've seen an earthquake swarm here last year in April. We actually seen a couple different swarms out here. They did not trigger the big one, but the thing is, maybe one of these swarms may trigger it. Don't want to be too complacent out here in terms of being on guard. So let's take a look at the magnitudes here, see what we have. The largest magnitude, of course, is going to be that 4.8 there, occurring just after midnight local time here in California. That was followed up very quickly by a 4.6, but I want to show you guys the sequence of earthquakes out here that took place following that 4.8. So the 4.8 struck here. 0, you can see the timestamp here, 36 minutes, so 12:36 basically there. Look at these earthquakes following that main quake here. Literally seconds within each other here. Following that 4.8, we're talking about all these threes, even a 4-pointer, and quite a few 2s and whatnot following each other, literally within seconds of each other. I have not seen that in quite a while. That tells me right there that I think maybe we potentially dodged at least a decent-sized quake out here, but that doesn't mean that the threat is over in this area. Normally that type of movement there tells us that strain is quite high out here across the area. But literally we've seen like it's pretty much a long duration earthquake out here is what it looks like. Because if you look at these earthquakes here, 3.5, about 15 seconds later we've seen a 3.6. 9 seconds later we've seen a 4.1. That's unusual. Not even joking. This is somewhat unusual activity. So, kind of watching it, right? We'll definitely keep an eye here on the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault. We have not seen any other migrational swarms out here so far. A little bit of activity up here outside the Long Valley supervolcano around Round Valley. It's a 3.5, about 5 kilometers deep here into the area. Aside from that, again, not really seeing anything major going on in terms of migrational activity, but it's still early, so we got to keep an eye on stuff like that. One little earthquake, or actually a couple earthquakes up here in the Cascades there outside of Eugene, Oregon, earlier this morning. Aside from that, let's go ahead and check out tremor activity, see what we got for the latest tremor. Now, this is not volcanic tremor, but Cascadia tremor. As far as earthquake, well, it's not really earthquake activity, but tremor down dip downstream into the Cascadia subduction zone. Most of the activity occurring up around the Vancouver Island ranges, a little bit down here across northern California and southern Oregon. Lately, when we see that activity, it looks like any type of tremor that occurs down into the deeper areas are triggering earthquakes upstream. So that tells us right there that things are fairly locked out here across the southern edge here of the Cascadia subduction zone. So we're continuing to watch that as well. I haven't seen anything that leads me to believe that we are in a relief period out here across California. And when I say that, I always use that that teeter-totter type effect that I've seen out here numerous times. Basically, when the West Coast out here, the Eastern Pacific is active, things are quiet, but not completely quiet out here. So basically, there's a couple things that could happen here. A larger earthquake out here across the West Coast, or relief for California if we see a much larger earthquake out here in this area. There was an article put out here following the 2011 9-pointer out there in Japan, right? Remember that shifted the land quite a bit? Well, these large earthquakes can relieve strain and pressure out here across this area of the plate boundary. So I'm waiting for that. I'm waiting for some much larger earthquake activity out here. We have not seen it. We did see a 6.1 there in the Volcano Islands area, fairly deep. But I don't think that's enough out here to relieve the strain and stress that the West Coast is currently experiencing. So we'll watch this overnight and see what else happens. I mean, that earthquake activity last night kicked up right after I went to bed. Kind of crazy. So things can stir up in the middle of the night, no doubt. As far as activity around the Philippines here, most of this activity in the 4 and 5 range. In the clustering areas here across the Philippines, we've been watching that here over the past few days. Just a pretty decent cluster of activity out there. Really no large quake activity out here across the Java Trench as far as migrational pressure goes, but I'll kind of watch that as well. Back over across the Tonga area and the Fiji Islands area, well, you would think that there's nothing going on, right? But if you look here at the earthquake 3D globe, there's definitely some earthquake activity. I'm not for sure why the USGS is not reporting it, but we are seeing some elevated activity here across North Island, New Zealand, northward here into the Kermadec Trench. So let's go ahead and check out what's going on there from the latest activity from the GeoNet servers here tonight. And there's a 3.6 South Island. This was felt. I smell smoke. I got a good nose for that stuff, so not good to smell smoke out here. 4.7 5 hours ago here. 70 kilometers deep here underneath the area of North Island right now. That is obviously not a surface fault system out there. That is more or less associated with the Hikurangi subduction zone that sits off here to the eastern side of the North Island region. That was felt fairly broadly over the area, looking at, wow, almost 7,300 earthquake, or 7,300 reports from this earthquake today there, with a 4.7 being fairly deep underneath the North Island area. So things are stirring up out here. Definitely seen a little bit more noticeable uptick here across North Island. We'll continue to watch that for some further movement. I'm always worried about the activity out here because, 4.7, it's a decent earthquake, but this is a deep magnitude earthquake there into the Hikurangi, and it definitely has potential out there. I've seen some much larger quake activity around the Hikurangi subduction zone. But there it is, some of the earthquake activity there, including that 4.7 and that 3-pointer more recently. Aside from that, things look like, for now, they have stabilized out there across New Zealand. Nothing showing up here across the USGS map, even though we've seen a 4.7 here a couple hours ago. So I'm a little disappointed in the reporting out here when it comes to the accuracy that the USGS has experienced out here lately. It's a Monday, right? It's not the weekend. So I don't know. I wish I could change that. I really wish I could. Far as the Hawaii area goes, definitely see some elevated activity out here. Roughly around the Kilauea Summit region southward to where I believe the migration of the magma is occurring here south of the Helena Slump offshore. These earthquakes right here, basically these over here are deeper quakes, looking at 30 kilometers deep. But these are the ones I'm watching, which are very shallow, just literally below the surface. And that's where that magma has kind of moved to. The question is, what's going on there? What's going on with the magma? Let's go ahead and check out the latest notification system here from the USGS. Hazard notification system for volcanoes. A publicly funded, well, any government is publicly funded, right? At least here in the States. The latest statement here was put out earlier today. Well, not today because today's Tuesday now, my time, but earlier Monday. States that where'd it go? I don't like this. They kind of messed up their whole system here. I don't know why they updated it, but I kind of liked it the way it was before. You could click on an article, and it would take you to the article. But now it takes you to the main page. It's like a loop-de-loop going on here. What's going on? Obviously, the volcano is not erupting. Let's see what we got here for some tilt meters. See what's up here. Summit tilt. The summit tilt meter here is obviously going up a little bit, but this is not anything big at all. If you think about it, compared to the last major movement of magma there from the summit off to the southwest rift zone, that is big time. We lost almost all of our inflation at the summit. It has moved off to the southwest rift zone and further south. So these little minor adjustments here in inflation are just minimal compared to what we lost. So I'm not really too concerned about that right now. I'm more concerned of what's going on with the, where the magma went to, that 9 million cubic meters of magma that have just suddenly disappeared. Not really disappeared, but, it's down there underneath the area. The question is what's going to go on next here. As far as earthquake activity goes, gosh darn it, let's see what we got here. Looks like this is offline again. 2:13. It looks like it went offline there specifically at 2:13 the UTC time of 0. And right now it's 2:13:0800. So we're lacking 8 hours of data here, unfortunately. It's been it's been a common thing here. I don't know why, because this is at a very important time where transparency is key. When you're not providing transparency out here from the government to the public, what are we to believe? Are we supposed to take the word out here that these are the only earthquakes occurring because the government puts it up here? We're supposed to have access to this data, and they've been having some issues here ever since. It seems like ever since the magma has been shifted off of the summit region. So it's a little fishy, to say the least. And that includes the majority of the seismograph stations out here. They're all offline. Well, not offline, but they're older movement quakes here. See, from about 8 hours or so ago. So hopefully they get that fixed. All right, we'll continue to watch it and report back on it, folks. There's a lot going on out here, and I don't like it when things don't work. I want my access to these data systems that obviously taxpayers pay for. All right, what else we got here? Yellowstone, maybe a little bit of activity outside the Yellowstone area, around the Hebgen Lakes area. Let's go see what's going on there real quick. We'll check out these seismographs, see if anything's up to date. It looks like I'm already seeing some of that earthquake activity here showing up around the Hebgen Lake, Maple Creek area. This is up to par, right? Obviously up to date, 2:13:07:30. So yeah, we're perfect in terms of accurate data. All right, let's see what else we have out here across the area here. South America region still seeing some 2s, 3s, and 4s. Middle America Trench still showing some activity. There's definitely some further swarming going on here across the Gulf of California. It looks as though the USGS has stopped reporting on that. This swarming area out here in the Gulf, I believe that's key somewhat into what's going on there across the California area currently. Over the last 7 days, we've seen a swarm of activity down here. And as you can see, there's fairly recent activity stirring up down there, but maybe it looks like about 3 4-pointers or so down in that same area. But nothing showing up here from the USGS right now. So, I mean, come on, what's going on here? Let's report this stuff, right? So yeah, don't let your guard down out here, folks. I still think we're looking at some possible larger scale activity out here across California. All signs have been pointing to it over the last week or so, and more so recently with this warming going on there around the El Centro area. Unless we see a much larger earthquake activity event out here across the Western Pacific, I still think we need to watch. X marks the spot out here across California. I did see some activity way up north, way up into Siberia, Russia area, well away from the plate boundary of 4.8. Don't really see too much activity out there, but definitely seen some interesting earthquake activity out here recently. Further to the south here of the Russia quake, looks like a typical movement out there across the Mediterranean. Really not seeing anything major going on across the Atlantic. Some older movement quakes there from last night in the Mid-Atlantic ridge. Let's take a look at Iceland and see if anything else is going on out there. As far as earthquake activity goes, 17 earthquakes out there across the Iceland area for now. And the main area of concern, at least around the Grindavik region of Iceland, doesn't really show a whole lot of earthquake activity for now. Looking at the data in terms of inflation tells us that there's further magma and pressurization going on below. What happened to it? Thought I clicked on it. Maybe I didn't. There we go. This is from the Icelandic website here. Far as the activity around Grindavik, let's go ahead and check this out real quick and see what we got. Grindavik is right here. A couple other stations down here as well. Let's see here. Still kind of going up here. Not really seeing anything that would be of concern of major uptick. Again, we just seen some eruptive fissure activity there. Northeast of the Hagafell area recently there in Iceland. So I don't think we're going to see anything immediately keen up in terms of eruptive activity. Let's check out the Svartsengi area and see what's going on here. Yeah, there's really, I mean, it's pretty much similar to what we've seen over the last couple eruptions. We see the depletion, or at least the release of volume and pressurization there underneath the area. That's deflation going on here. Last couple events, we've seen this go up, obviously after the eruptive events. So I don't see anything of concern that would tell me that there's any immediate threat in terms of eruptive activity. And I've said this before, and I think I'll say it again. The key to watching for eruption activity out here is the divergent boundary zones. When we see earthquake activity elevated across this region, that means there's a further push of magma from below, right? Obviously, spreading seafloor center, what's going to happen? You think more water is going to come out from the center? Probably not. Obviously, there's going to be some further magma out here pushing up from below. That's what goes on out here across these divergent zones. And we've seen it. Last couple eruptions here, I noted it just prior to this most recent eruption. I'm not seeing anything of concern right now. So I think we got a couple weeks or so, maybe more, before we see eruptive activity returns there to the Iceland area. All right, space weather activity. Let's see what we got going on here. I thought we were supposed to have a G2 class storm tonight, right? G2 class storm. Anybody seen auroras out there? KP index looks quite low. Now, again, we are at, I don't think it's hit yet. Let me see what Kevin's stating here. We do have a geomagnetic storm watch in the next 48 hours. Could see G2 storming kicking up here, which would send the auroras down into maybe the northern tier states at least. Detailed forecast here. Main time frame, it looks like between 0600 and 12 here on the 13th. So right now we are currently on the UTC time. Within that, we're 2 hours deep into that zone, and we don't see, at least right now, I'm not seeing any signs of the CME activity that was supposed to hit the planet. Could be running late. Either way, it's forecasted, right? It looks like they are forecasting that potential for a G2 class storm. So just keep your eyes open. The SFI index here has gone up quite a bit here recently in terms of the solar flux index. Quite a bit of solar flare activity and energy levels are heightened. We are seeing a return of the proton event out here. Actually, it's never gone away yet. It's been going on here for about 5 or 6 days. So this activity, definitely could have something to do with the continued earthquake activity we're seeing there in certain regions. It looks as though on the far side, let's see what we got here. Way out there. See that on the northeastern limb of the sun? A little bright feature, at least on the UV filter ray here. That's a solar flare from a very active region. Got this massive region down here showing some flaring. So energy levels are quite high, as the SFI shows there. We're looking at a 25% chance of X flare possibility. Obviously, 99% chance for a C flare continuing. X flare has been elevated to about 75% chance. So things are starting to cook a little bit in terms of solar flare activity. So watch for some X flare probability here. It looks like 3583 has made it up here to the beta gamma class. 3583, let me pop this up here, is a, well, it's kind of grown up here, getting a little bit of complexity within that sunspot core. So we'll continue to watch that. It looks like 3582 as well. So numerous regions showing some elevated complexity. And of course, we do have a very active region much further out on the northeastern limb. I don't think it's coming from that area. It's coming back from that little region here. I don't know if you guys can see it or not. Way out there on the northeastern limb. So elevated space weather activity continues. We'll watch for some further earthquake activity here overnight and into the days ahead. Storm Prediction Center, not a whole lot going on. Current outlook looks like some marginal risk for some severe weather across portions of the East Coast. Right, numerical models. Let's see what we got going on here. We're waiting for a big storm, or at least a couple storms out here in California. Here's the southwestern view here of the GFS model run. Looks like maybe on the well, after Valentine. Actually, this is going to be a Valentine's night here with that UTC time, about 6 o'clock on Valentine's Day. Looks like some rain coming in. Not a big amount of rain, but some rain and snow. And then that's going to be followed up by maybe a little bit stronger system there into the weekend. And, wow. Yikes. Look at that. Quite a bit more rain coming into the about San Francisco area southward there. Look at that impressive rainfall accumulation rates there. Coming into California, Southern California as well. Northern California looks like we'll get some decent rain, but that's a dandy of a storm. And then after that, well, looks like maybe we got a little more storm systems coming in there. So the question that has popped up here, what's going on? Is all this rainfall contributing to the earthquake activity there in California? Well, I think it's possible. I mean, they did have quite a bit of rain out here. But I'm kind of leaning more towards the stress out here just in general. It just happens to be the timing specifically in this area. Now, if we were looking at maybe some heightened areas up here of earthquake activity where all that rainfall has been put down, I could see that. But, it does take a little time for the rainfall accumulation to seep down into the some of the surface faults to potentially trigger or lubricate the fault systems below. But this down here I know they've gotten quite a bit of rain, but I think this is just an overall pattern of the general plate stress out here as a whole across California. We've seen it from northern California southward here in the last week, a lot more elevated than it has been. I don't think anyone can say that it hasn't. So we continue to be observant. Continue to make sure you have an earthquake plan. If you haven't, if you put it off, you need to do it. 200, over 200 earthquakes here in the last 24 hours. It's calming down slightly, but there's always that possibility here that this could kick back up, or we could see a migration of the swarming closer to the southern branch here of the San Andreas Fault. As far as earthquake activity goes, currently it looks like we brought up most of our stations here. They're back online, except for the Chile station here. So I'm going to remove that, and we'll keep the majority of these up in Japan, Yellowstone, Hot Caves, Hawaii, Kodiak Island, Alaska, Mount St. Helens, Petrolia outside of Eureka, Philippines, and the Barrett Station there in Southern California, which sits right about here, I would say. It is picking up some of the larger activity that occurs in the swarm, but not all of the smaller microquake activity. So, be vigilant out here and make sure you guys stay safe. We'll catch you guys back here tomorrow morning, which, technically a little bit later on this morning here, right? Tuesday morning. You guys have a good night. Please subscribe while you're here. Give a thumbs up. That does help us out quite a bit. We'll catch you guys back out here a little bit later after a little bit of sleep. Have a good one.